Welcome back to the Human Perspective. We're continuing to bring you the voices of disabled people from the United States and around the world. Today we're in Troy, New York, speaking with advocacy leaders who are a part of the New York Association on Independent Living. New York State has 41 centers for independent living. Advocacy is a significant portion of their work, supporting disabled people learning how to exercise their rights. Today I'm with Denise Figueroa, who is the Executive Director of the Independent Living Center of the Hudson Valley in Troy, New York. She's been a disability rights advocate and friend for over 40 years. Denise is originally from Brooklyn. Denise's life and her long experience with disability have given her knowledge and expertise that she applies in her daily work. She's the former chairperson of the National Council on Independent Living and is also the publisher of Independence Today. Denise was married to the late Pat Figueroa, who was the founder of Sydney, the first independent living center in New York State. She's the proud mother of Melissa and prouder grandmother of Dominic. Also a great cook. And my dream is that Denise has her own cooking show with her own accessible kitchen. If you ever get to go to her house and have her prepare a meal for you, you'll understand why. So Denise, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How long have you had your disability? Can you edit so I could just start?
Just keep talking and we'll cut it out.
Okay. How long have you had your disability, and what is your disability?
I contracted polio when I was 9 months old in 1955, so I've had it most of my life. I've known only being a person with a disability growing up.
Did you go to regular schools or special classes?
I started out school in a small town in Connecticut, actually, I was the only person with a disability. So I started out in a mainstreamed environment where they just took me in a cab to school because that was the only way they could get me there. I couldn't climb the steps of the school bus. But when I moved back to New York City, my family was originally from there. When we moved back and I was in second grade, I started in health conservation classes in Brooklyn. It was before special ed, of course, before 94-142. And so we had what they called health conservation classes, and there were 4 grades in one class. And it was actually a shock to me that I had to be separated from my sisters who went to the same school as I did before. But now I was in a separate school from them and with only other kids with disabilities. So it was difficult. It was a difficult transition.
How long? I was in health conservation 21 classes also. How long were you in those classes? When did you go to regular school?
I was there for probably 2 years, and 3 years probably. And then what happened was I kept complaining to my mother that I already knew a lot of the work because I had that work in school in Connecticut. And she looked at my books when I was going from the 4th grade to the 5th grade and realized I was going home with a 3rd grade math book, and talked to the teachers at the school, who of course said, well, we'd only give her the work she can do, but I was on the dean's list, so on the honor roll for school, at grammar school. And so she ended up walking up to the parochial school near me and convinced them to take me in, and even though we were not a family that could really afford it, but they took me in, and so I was mainstreamed at that point for the rest of grammar school, and then segregated for high school. So it was really quite the mixed experience.
So why did you decide to dedicate your life to disability rights advocacy?
Well, I think probably that was really my first introduction to feeling as if I was being treated differently because I was disabled. Growing up, I was so embarrassed by my disability. I didn't want to associate with other people with disabilities. Because I felt like I was being treated differently, and I didn't want to be like those people. But I think as I got older and started meeting, I went to college and I started meeting other people with disabilities who were active in the student organization there. I realized that there was power in being together, meeting other people, and choosing to be with other people with disabilities, not being forced to do it. And so I went to a meeting of the Student Organization for Every Disability, United for Progress. It was so fed up. I met this attractive looking guy who later became my husband, Pat, who was recruiting people to come to a demonstration against Nixon for vetoing the Rehab Act. And so, obviously I was attracted to him, but it was really, it was empowering to think about the fact that I could do something about how I felt like I had been treated all of my life.
And that's when we met.
That's when we met.
That's when we first met.
At that demonstration.
That's
yes.
right. So you and Pat decided to start this publication called Independence Today. It's still around. When did it start, and why did you start it, and why are you committed to continuing it?
Well, we started, it's already been 11 years actually since we began the publication. And the reason we started it is that there was really no newspaper that addressed disability rights issues or looked at issues from a disability rights perspective. Traditional journalism has characterized us as being special or unique or needing to be taken care of, and always, more in a medical model or sick model, victims of your disability. And so we felt it was important, number one, to bring the voice of people with disabilities to the press. So we hire people who are writers who have disabilities, who have experience in the disability rights movement, to write these articles. And we, are committed, I'm committed to continuing it, even though Pat was the publisher. He was the one who worked with all the writers to begin the publication. And he also wanted to feature the leaders in the disability rights community who don't get any press. And so we made sure that we, those who were still alive, we missed Ed Roberts, but we were able to feature other leaders in the disability rights community, including you and Michael Winter and Max Starkloff and Anna Fay and so many people, Jim Weissman, so many people who have contributed to the community and that otherwise people might not know about.
Mm-hmm. So, as a disabled woman, what changes have you seen in the movement over the last few decades?
Well, obviously overall there have been many changes, I think, in the movement in terms of more women with disabilities taking leadership roles. It always was that we were working. We were always the workers in all of the organizations, but we weren't necessarily the directors of the programs or getting the credit for that. And so I think that women have taken a more prominent role in the movement. And I think that that's a wonderful thing. I think there needs to be more diversity among the women and men in the movement in terms of the leadership. But it's been, very positive, I think.
So if you have a message to give to our audience about the direction that we're moving in, what you think they should be doing, tell them.
Well, what concerns me in the movement, especially in the independent living movement, the independent living centers, is that I see us, I fear that we will be driven only by where funds are, and lose the advocacy focus. There's some great advocacy groups out there, but we can't just hand over advocacy to other groups. I think that we need to continue to support advocacy organizations, support individuals to become advocates, to support leaders with disabilities to take over the centers. Too many centers are now run by people who have no history in the movement. And so even if they have a disability, they really don't have a connection. And my concern is that we never forget what our history is and how not that long ago we were discriminated against in everything, and we still are. It's not like we're safe at this point. We have so much that we can lose just with changes in administration, and so we need to stay strong, and we need to make sure that we're constantly promoting new leaders.
Thank you. So thank you, Denise, very much for being with us. Once again, our time is up. We'd like to thank our audience for joining us today. Sometime in the future, we'll film from Denise's kitchen, and please continue the discussion in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Human Perspective, and hit the like and share button in this video. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again.